video screens in lieu of mirrors, giant touchscreens, and text messages to keep you engaged. The fitting room is going digital.
I think what we're watching here is some fundamental changes in the broader world.
Be able to deploy a human, but once it's too dangerous to deploy a human itself, we wanted to be able to deploy something that could do work as a human would be able to. So the way I like to think about this project is that we're trying to put the human's brain inside the robot, so we want to take advantage.
Virtually teleport from one space to another in real time. Hey Sergio. So if Sergio is to wear his HoloLens device and I'm going to wear mine, we can see each other in full 3D in real time. We can interact and communicate as if we're co-present. Sergio, can you walk around my space? Can you walk behind this chair? So we're doing everything to give the impression that Sergio and I are present in the same space. Sergio, let's just do a high five. That's great.
Bye.
Thank you, Sergio. We call this technology holoportation.
Look, I can write like this now.
Years ago, in 1985, Microsoft Windows 1.0 was launched. Later, the Sony Discman D50 Mark II was launched, a CD player. NES, the Nintendo Entertainment System, was shipped to the United States. The average modem can transfer about 24 bytes per second. 20 years ago, in 1995, the dot-com business starts. JavaScript is developed, and Apple allows companies to copy their computers. IBM unveils the World Chess Champion, Deep Blue, against Garry Kasparov, and the first wiki page is created. 10 years ago, in 2005, the USB stick was invented. YouTube is launched. Hurricane Katrina even happened. Peer-to-peer virtual gaming is developed, and Asimo, the first humanoid robot, gets its job as a receptionist. It's now 2015, where we have realistic robots working as receptionists, burger bots in restaurants making all kinds of food, and now bartending robots that can make you any kind of martini that you would like. We have the PlayStation 4, as well as the Xbox One, and who can forget the iPhone? I think the question we need to ask ourselves is not what this means, but where it's going, and what else is going on that we can't tell. Here, let me read you some of the headlines. Like, check this out. Facebook wants to use your friends to pronounce your name. Scientists are using electrodes to remote control people. MakerBot and 3D Hubs, which are, 3D printing companies, team up to mainstream 3D printing. A literal article named "Why is Google the New Evil Empire?" Robotics to shift power and balance to more employers. And Google launching its own wireless service. A drone with radioactive stickers placed all over it found atop of the Japanese Prime Minister's office. And an army of robotic spiders controlled with hand gestures. Why do we need these things? Do you have these things? I don't. There are things going on that we can't even comprehend. There are some questions I'd like to have answered, like, what do all these advances mean? What's coming next? How do all these things add up? And why do we need these things? Like, why are they here? We need to take a look at all the other facts.
Hi, I'm Nigel. I lost part of my arm in an accident at work a few years ago. Since then I've been fortunate enough to be given one of these to trial. This is the Be-Bionic V3. It's a prosthetic hand and it works from sensors on the inside and outside of my arms and muscle control. If I activate this sensor, the hand opens. Activate this one, the hand closes. It's got 8 preset patterns which I can use throughout the day. I can move the thumb. To give me point grips, this I can use, I can tie it. And it has a wrist on it. And this is all controlled purely by 2 muscles, one on the outside and one on the inside of the arm. As you can see, it's a really nice piece of equipment. And I love it. This is the Be-Bionic V3. This is key grip. This allows you to hold credit cards, bank cards, car keys, etc, etc. I now move to a point. Pretty self-explanatory. This one will allow me to type on the keyboards. We then move the thumb to this position and we can get a tripod grip. So we're picking small things up. We can then change the grip again. And this is power grip, this is for heavy things, this is for shaking hands, this is for being human. Then we have this grip here. This is one that scares children and upsets my wife. Rotate the hand here. This is trigger grip, but it can be adapted if you so wish, if you've got the guts. We have a relaxed grip. This is so that when you walk down the street it just looks like a normal hand. You can close it a bit further if you want to. And then we have a mouse grip. This will hold a mouse, single click, double click. And they're developing this now so that you'll be able to soon be able to drag and drop. Good.
Right on. Cheers, mate. I can understand that. He's trying to pour himself a beer and work for his family. Seems like a pretty decent guy. But then there's other technology out there that doesn't have that same kind of intention. Here, check some of this stuff out. What did I just watch? I think I saw someone get suited up in a semi-robotic outfit and then charge into what looked like a Middle Eastern settlement. And with evil intentions, you know what happened. Look at this. If you still think it's a game, check this out.
The Hulk is an anthropomorphic exoskeleton which mimics the human form. It provides extra support that enables a person to carry more weight than they normally could. Exoskeleton technologies are considered part of the robotics field. If you want to think about them as wearable robots, that's pretty accurate. They sense what the user wants to do, where the user wants to go, and mimics the motion. We like to call these mantonomous systems. The exoskeleton is primarily composed of titanium components, which are both lightweight and provide the strength needed to carry the load. A microprocessor takes in readings from the sensors that are throughout the structure and calculates where the user wants to move, and then commands the actual hydraulic system to actuate the joints to provide the motion. You can walk, you can run, you can bend, you can crawl, you can leap. It does not impede your range of motion whatsoever. This technology could be a real benefit to the military. Just imagine you're a soldier operating at 6,000 feet in the Afghan mountains and being asked to take 120 pounds up in that level of thin air. How exhausted you would be once you got there. An exoskeleton provides the ability to carry that weight the same distance, but to have energy left to execute the mission once you're there. We've also looked at attachments that allow users to carry weight not only on their back, but also on the front. The exoskeleton will fit anybody between 5'4" and 6'2". The current system weighs 53 pounds, but it's pretty much unnoticeable to the user because what the technology does is it even transfers its own weight to the ground, in addition to the weight you're carrying. And we're taking the load off the soldier's back, and we're going to help prevent injuries that occur from carrying heavy loads and repetitive lifting tasks. The best part about working on this technology is that it gives us a glimpse into the art of the possible.
There was a time when bringing all of our operators home alive was impossible. That dream is now closer than once imagined. From the battlefront to the home front, we're building a world where science fiction becomes science reality, where innovation blurs the line of invention and safety is more than a side effect of protection. We took personal protection back to the drawing board. What worked before is not good enough. Build the skeleton and the rest will follow. Rely on the human body alone, and you may need to pick between mission and safety. Combine innovation and the human body, and you have an unstoppable capability. The intersection of protection and human enablement. A new era of soldier protection has arrived. The future is now. This is Revision.
Of Oakland illuminates exactly how far law enforcement will go in order to use surveillance devices known as stingrays to catch suspected criminals. Back in 2013, the Oakland Police Department and FBI used stingrays to find a man who was allegedly involved in the shooting of a police officer. At the time, no warrant had been obtained, and since then, the agencies have been trying to hide information about how they deployed the devices. A judge has now ordered the government to formally disclose as many details as possible. RT's Brigitte Santos joins me now from Los Angeles with more. Brigitte, how do stingrays work and how can they be deployed without a warrant?
Anya, that's exactly the type of questions that the judge in this case, Judge Donna Ryu, is trying to figure out. So here's what we know so far. Now, stingrays can be used to determine a mobile phone's location by spoofing a cell tower.
DARPA is developing technologies that would enable future U.S. warfighters to take advantage of complex networks of weapons systems to operate more effectively in contested environments. This system of systems strategy aims to enhance mission effectiveness and decrease risk to U.S. pilots while imposing asymmetric costs upon adversaries. The approach also makes it possible to rapidly upgrade mission systems and ensure use of the most up-to-date software and hardware. In this scenario, a United States fighter begins to close on an enemy-integrated air defense site to punch a hole through the adversary's defenses and create a corridor of safe access for U.S. strike forces. The fighter is accompanied to the rear by a specially designed mission truck perhaps akin to a modified C-130. This mission truck has the ability to deploy a wide variety of easily upgraded low-cost weapons, including recoverable unmanned aircraft systems or UAS platforms. While staying well outside enemy engagement ranges, the truck greatly expands mission capability in the
Congress is running out of time to block a controversial proposal that would allow the FBI to hack victims of cyber crimes. RT Simone Del Rosario reports on the fast-approaching deadline that, if missed, could compromise security for hundreds of thousands of people here and abroad.
If you get hacked by a criminal, you could get hacked again, this time by the government tasked with your protection. That's how an amendment to Federal Rule 41 of Criminal Procedure works. And if Congress does nothing to stop it, it goes into effect December 1st. The proposed changes would regularly allow judges to issue search warrants to hack into computers outside their jurisdiction. And a single search warrant could serve to hack into numerous computers in multiple jurisdictions. So a judge in Texas could issue a single warrant to hack into computers in California, Alaska, New York, even beyond our borders. The government says the changes are necessary to keep up with cross-border internet crimes.
What is it about society that disappoints you so much? What is it about society that disappoints you so much? What is it about society that disappoints you so much? What is it about society that disappoints you so much?
We collectively thought Steve Jobs was a great man, even when we knew he made billions off the backs of children. Or maybe it's that it feels like all our heroes are counterfeit. The world itself is just one big hoax. Spamming each other with our running commentary, bullshit, masquerading as insight. Our social media faking its intimacy. Or is it that we voted for this? Not with our rigged elections, but with our things, our property, our money.
What is it about society that
So,
disappoints you?
idea that memory is stored in the brain and the persistent physical changes goes back to Plato. But the modern formulation of this hypothesis had to wait until the turn of the 20th century when Richard Zeeman coined the word engrams for these persistent changes. We have now identified a population of brain cells that hold a specific memory. Not only that, we can now engineer these cells with the light so that animals' memories, emotions, and even thoughts can be manipulated. So this is the idea that have existed only in the realm of science fiction until recently.
Alright guys, how's it going? Another episode of Crisis Corner where I sort of address the things that are going on behind the scenes. We're not necessarily paying attention to a force that's being constructed behind our backs. While we're distracted by racial division, proxy wars, and all kinds of other things that don't necessarily advance us, there's a force in the back that actually is governing what we're doing. With the Building the Matrix series that I'm doing, it's essentially showing how we're just doing that, how we're building our own matrix, how they're creating these institutions for prison and quote-unquote security, peace and security as they put it, but when really it does not have our best interests at heart. These are things that, like laws, restrict what we're able to do. Now, I pulled up a few separate articles over the past few months just to give you an idea of what's going on. There's a few in there that kind of trail off, but you know, bear with me and try to see the bigger message of what it is I'm actually trying to get across to you guys. Okay. One of the things, like I've said before, and you can probably see in my other videos and in my work, in my writing, and my articles, etc., is I am not a technophobe. I'm actually a huge geek, but the institutions that are controlling this technology, they are not trying to advance us. We're moving towards a global physical transformation instead of a spiritual enlightenment. These are supposed to be tools that are supposed to advance us, but they're actually doing the opposite. They're dumbing us down, they're condemning us, and they don't push the ball forward for us. I mean, when was the last time you actually did math in your head? Or did you use the phone? Or did you use Siri, some sort of artificial intelligence? Now, I know a lot of people think, oh, well, you know, the robots aren't here, the robots aren't coming, you know, I'm perfectly fine, my job is safe. Well, you know, that's all well and fine, and I'm glad you think that. However, that's not the case. So, enough ranting, let me just jump straight into it. With that being said, welcome to the Crisis Corner episode on transhumanism, the technocracy, and essentially Building the Matrix, Part 2. So, with psychic robots now being developed, how do you think this makes everyone else feel? Do things like Future Crime, Minority Report, and the actual predictive programming come into play when you think about these things? In the article it says that you'll reach for something on your desk and then you'll be stopped by a metallic hand which has already brought it to you. These are machines that are able to predict, think, and react at levels probably thousands faster than we are. The reason why I'm looking at these articles is because while we're sitting here fighting about, you know, cops killing black people or Syrian refugees or ISIS or Russia or all these other things, our replacements are being made. One of the reasons why this sticks out to me so much is because it's able to predict trends. Okay? And I'm going to blast through these because I have a lot of other things I need to get into. Okay? Implantable contraceptives. They can last up to 16 years. They substitute the menstrual cycle. It's a form of population control as well as sterilization. These are things that are being made that do not benefit us. These are anti-human. Okay? These are things that really, really do not go along with where we're going or where we should be going. These inhibit your natural responses. Your body is not meant, or a female's body, is not meant to not have a menstrual cycle for 16 years. That's all of puberty gone because of a chip. Imagine the emotional irregularities that come with this kind of stuff. It's wrong. But guess who created it? Bill Gates. Of course. He's a torchbearer as far as the depopulation agenda. Moving on. Like I said, these are things that are anti-human. They do not benefit us. The Pentagon, or DARPA, is now putting money into DNA manufacturing. Yes. Say goodbye to normal humans, like I said before. Where we're going in this matrix that they're having us build, we're not meant for it. Okay? They're going to kill us. In the future, there is no room for humans. It's genetic modification, GMO people, human-animal hybrids. And if you want to know how this ends badly, check out this movie called Gattaca. See what happens to the people that are genetically enhanced, that are augmented, and then see what happens to us regulars, us normies, us people that don't get the genetic modification. We lose. Okay, these are supermen that they're creating. Also, Britain is wanting to genetically modify human embryos. They have this machine called CRISPR where you can actually, it's spelled CRISPR, and you can actually go in, rewrite your genetic code, and it's weird. It's simple. I'll do a separate report on that, but my gosh. Now I threw this one in here randomly because I felt like it shows the mindset of the people that are in power, the controlling oligarchy or the elite, the Illuminati, the satanic Illuminati, however you prefer to look at them. They're merging criminal and civilian fingerprint databases, building a huge biometric database on all citizens. Yes, they're grouping us together. It causes confusion amongst crimes, allowing for people to unlawfully be detained for a crime that they probably did not even commit. It objectifies and categorizes humans as targets all the time. We're constantly saying how we're engaged in a war. Now, whenever this happens, the FBI has singled all of us out. They've put us against them. And whoever has control of these powers, of these institutions, they now have openly declared war upon us by doing these types of things. And I know it seems simple, and I might be even overreacting, but you know, what happens whenever you're just sitting down having a glass of tea, and then all of a sudden you get flashbang because there's no more warrants that people would need, or that the police would need, to come inside of your house. And matter of fact, whenever you get flashbanged and your door kicked in, it's not even you. It's not even the right person. You're detained, your family's detained and everything because they messed up. There was a clerical error on their end. But it's cool because the FBI merged the civilian and criminal finger data print bases. You see what I'm saying? Or fingerprint databases. Sorry, my mind's running a lot faster than my mouth apparently. One of the reasons why I felt like having this here, the Japanese Kaizen, or the robot boss, is because it shows where we're going, like I said, in this matrix that they're having us build. And I know I'm really kind of flying past all these things, but in this matrix that they're having us build, humans are obsolete, all right? We're the problem. That's what they're trying to put across to us. We're the plague on this earth, and that we don't know how to take care of ourselves. That's the huge cornerstone of the transhumanist belief that we are flawed at birth. Now, moving back to this, going over this article really quickly, having a robot boss, you're gonna have to get used to things like having efficiency over comfortability. You know, they do not produce waste. Their productivity is increased and the quotas are met through labor regardless of the circumstances. There's no more vacations. There's no more, oh, you know, I'm sick. There's no more caring. All right? When these types of things happen, or whenever these parameters get put in, they're essentially excluding us humans. And it might not seem like much now, but, you know, give it 10, 20 years. Whenever people actually start waking up more, whenever what we're saying now is actually coming into fruition. And this kind of slides in with Jade Helm 15, with their unconventional warfare, the AI program that's surveilling everything, with the military right down the street ready to respond. I'll have to put up on a separate note my response to Jade Helm 15 and Windows 10 and the similarities between that, and just how ironic, how synchronistic, how strange all of that is. Okay. I wanted to start off the first half of this or at least the first portion of this part of the documentary, part 2 of Building the Matrix, explaining to you how subtly we're being converted to go along with this anti-human agenda, and how it seems so wonderful, so glorious that all these things are going to happen. We're going to have robot bosses, we're going to have, all kinds of different things that are available to us. We're going to live a life of luxury and leisure, not having to worry about a single thing, and, well, you know, we couldn't be farther from the truth. You see, these computers, they don't see race or color, creed or religion, any of these things that we try to define ourselves by. They don't care. They don't comprehend spiritual truths. They don't make excuses. No. What a computer does do is it gets the job done. It problem solves. It works harder and faster. So, while we were fighting about color, these things were being made. To make way for the New World Order, they have to destroy the old world order of freedom, independence, and God-given rights. The New World Order, it depends and demands on your obedience and undying faith to the system, to the Matrix. How can they do this whenever people can still question the narrative and think for themselves? Even with the mainstream media, the New World Order needs an even bigger propaganda machine or an institution which delivers information to the people, similar to George Orwell's 1984 Ministry of Truth. See, right now we're undergoing a massive wave of change. We're literally fighting for our lives because the world that we do know it as is being turned upside down. And on a separate note, I've termed this as the Great Inversion, where evil is good and good is evil. I'll definitely do something on that later because we really need to take a look at that. A perfect example of this is the tearing down of the Ten Commandments in Oklahoma and the razing of the Satanic Temple in Detroit. Okay, there are things happening, subtle hints towards destruction, towards the Satanic Illuminati's goal. Even now, this is truth as you're hearing it. However, in their design future, thinking for yourself is invalid and unnecessary. Imagine having a centralized form of technology which deploys information to be digested on a massive scale. Or do we have that now called the internet? Essentially, being guided and formed to align with the controlling oligarchy's will. And with this technological delivery comes the unfettered propaganda disguised as truth. Phrases such as, "the government loves you," and "get your daily vaccines" will become as commonplace as America, freedom. That's exactly what it will be. Freedom from thinking for yourself. So when this occurs, they will have won. Right now, we're distracted and engaged in faux debates on freedoms and liberties that are cleverly being taken from us in front of our very own eyes. I've always believed there is no law that can give you freedom. And when we come up with rules, regulations, and laws, we're violating actually our inherent God-given rights. So with that being said, the Satanic Illuminati are in the process of creating artificial freedom. A fake paradise which they can control with their megalomaniac ideas. Bill Gates, as I've mentioned before, is the torchbearer for depopulation. He's created an artificial pill that basically acts as birth control for up to 16 years. That shows you what he's thinking. Imagine what that does to your internal organs and how your body's supposed to grow naturally. And this isn't the first time we've heard about this, or at least creating another race of man. This idea of combining humans with technology is a continuation of Hitler and Nietzsche's Superman, or is it Übermensch? This ideology is known as transhumanism and the technocracy. All of these things are proponents of the New World Order. And with this, they plan to have science to achieve immortality. They want to use things like life extension or 3D printing organs or, consciousness transferring bodies into clones to have immortality, synthetic physical immortality. But they, like I've said before, they couldn't be any more wrong. This is a global delusion. What seems natural is being manipulated and subverted by ill-willed individuals. As I've said before, they've got to completely renovate the old system. How does this tie into building the Matrix? Well, like I've said, they've got to destroy and condemn everything, the world that we once knew, in order to make way for this artificial, fake Matrix paradise called Limbo that they want us to live in. we're going under an economic coup for quote-unquote sustainable development. They're using business terms to relate to human life, human capital. We are the resources, okay? That's why these things are bad. And I know I'm jumping all over the place, but I'm trying to have you guys really realize what it is they're trying to do. They're replacing spirituality with physicality. There's a global transformation occurring instead of a spiritual enlightenment. They believe that they can achieve nirvana through the works of the flesh, making your best life now, to quote Joel Osteen. When really all they really want us to do is live in this limbo that they've created, and they want to dress it up as if it's some kind of paradise. A paradise where everything is sustainably developed, apparently. A paradise where they make the rules. They govern these ideas. They govern who has these types of things. And what happens with matters of the flesh? What happens with finite objects? Eventually they go away. Which brings me to my next point. Consumption versus production. And these are the means of survival. But who would govern that distribution? Who would talk about the haves and the have-not? You see how we get back to that R-complex state of mind? That survival state of mind? That greed? Something that this earth can give you that will be gone shortly. Something that is temporary. Well, this has slight characteristics of Darwin's theory of evolution. Do you see how all of this just so happens to mix together? In this new world order, we are not meant to thrive. We're meant to get by, to be obedient, to do as we're told, to obey. It's socialist communism on steroids. I'll put it to you this way. Okay. Like in the Hunger Games, where every district is responsible for a certain means of either production, recycling, or even consumption, we're going to have a global standard. We're going to have our own duties, our own roles, our own sections. They want to set global standards that are sanctioned by the UN. Ideas such as Common Core will be instituted globally. And I'm not sure if you've paid attention to some of the stuff that they're teaching children at school with this Common Core, but it makes no fracking sense. No farfignugan sense. It really does not. And it blows my mind. Like I said before, we're the resources in this new world order. They need us. Only for a limited time, because with this matrix that they're building, they want to destroy the world that we're familiar with, only to push us inside of this fake artificial matrix that they have built where they can reign as gods. And that's the problem. Because as resources, in regards to resources, wealth is not in numbers or items. Or wealth is in numbers and items, not in money. Okay? And I've said this before in other videos, other discussions, etc., that whenever they create these subhumans or these tomorrow people or these human-animal hybrids, they won't be human. We were born. We came from our mother's womb, all of us. These came from test tubes. These are created creatures, and I'm not calling them monsters because, well, I'm not questing at the moment. But whenever these things happen, they have property rights over what they've created, over their human capital. So when they replace us with these future men, these future soldiers, they'll have the rights to deactivate them and turn them back on. Going back to how there's different sections that are going to have to sacrifice for the Machiavellian belief of what's best for everyone. They're going to convert natural resources to UN heritage sites. Essentially, they're going to say, oh hey, your nation needs to give this to the UN because the world needs it. Completely usurping our individual national rights. That's why the Constitution doesn't mean anything now. The Bill of Rights doesn't mean anything now. Because we're going underneath a global standard. The Pope himself has already called for this type of behavior. These are all proponents of the Green Agenda. That is the New World Order's master plan, or at least an aspect of it. Agenda 21, Agenda 2030. That's what they're trying to do for sustainable development. They need to get rid of the primary factors that are going against their will. In my first video, and I know this goes off topic. In my first video, I definitely displayed a lot more of the technological aspects of it and how they're doing subtle convergences to meld us with technology. But there is another aspect to it. This is the technocracy. Transhumanism and the technocracy go hand in hand. With what they're doing, or at least the plans that they have for us, we're not allowed to succeed. We're not allowed to be. And there's a lot more to this, guys, that I really want to get into, but it's just, gradually you've got to experience these things. You've got to understand these things. The first part of this series was to show you that, that there are advances being made in the name of science and quote-unquote freedom, liberty, etc., renaissance, that are being used for degenerative purposes, for malicious intent. What I'm trying to do with this section of the series is to show you some of the things that they're building right now, again, that have this same malicious intent. This is the pattern. They release these things while we're distracted over radical statements made by politicians, identity politics and race baiting, things that will easily upset us. And this isn't just for America, this is for everywhere. This is for the world. This is what they intend to do. I just want you guys to take a second, maybe go look up a few other things and let me know what you think. I could be freaking out about this. However, I don't think that's the case. And the reason I made this video is to bring it to your attention that these things are happening. And I'm constantly telling friends, family, followers, people that email me, and even other researchers, we need to remember what it means to be human. All of this senseless killings, they've got to stop. I'm not here to preach to you about your faith or about what you should believe in, etc., etc. I'm merely laying out facts, discussing the trends, seeing where it's going, etc. And I'm saying, yo, this does not look good. We should definitely change something up and maybe see what we can do. With that being said, guys, I'm going to end that. I'm going to end this here. And I really want you guys to Be aware. This is coming from the heart.
I really find this whole idea of food printing very exciting because it touches on something that's very, very basic to our lives. So, we've been cooking for forever, but if you think about it, while technology and software has sort of wormed its way into almost every aspect of our life, cooking is still very, very primitive. This is one area where innovation has not technology has not permeated, and I think it's very interesting to think what would happen when you bring software and robotics into something as basic as cooking. And the moment you unleash this computer control, this programmable way of cooking, we'll have access to basically a new, if you like, a new food space. There's a lot of opportunities around.
A human, but once it's too dangerous to deploy a human itself, we wanted to be able to deploy something that could do work as a human to be able to. So the way I like to think about this project is that we're trying to put the human's brain inside the robot, so we want to take advantage of
Pepper is the first humanoid robot capable of recognizing the principal human emotions. He can adapt to any behavior and mood of his user. Use Pepper in hospitality care or retail as a new way of welcoming and amusing your customers. He can help you find the right product or show you the way into the hospital. Pleasant and likable, Pepper is much more than a robot. He is a genuine humanoid companion created to communicate with you in the most natural and intuitive way, through his body movements and his voice.
Suggestion, sir. Maybe you might want to buy some flowers.
Pepper has numerous sensors and makes individual movements. Thanks to his face detection and built-in camera system, he can recognize any person in your customer's system and talk to them.
Applied VR transforms the patient experience. Instead of fear and anxiety, your medical procedure can become less stressful and, in many cases, even enjoyable. Choose a guided meditation, tour a beautiful place, or play a game. Use it before, during, or after your procedure, depending on your treatment. Your nurse will fit you with the headset, show you how it works. Once it's on, you'll be transported to a whole new world with a stunning 360-degree view. Just turn your head to look around and explore. We believe virtual reality helps patients, improves post-procedural outcomes, and can ultimately solve some of the biggest challenges facing healthcare today. To experience the power of Applied VR, ask your doctor or nurse for a trial.
Faceception is a facial personality profiling company. We developed a computer vision and machine learning technology to conduct facial personality profiling at scale and in real time. Facial analysis technologies today mostly focus on facial recognition, which means matching a face to a known individual, for example, a terrorist. But what about the people that are not in the database? What do we really know about them? Well, according to social and life science research, our personality is determined by our DNA and reflected in our face. With our technology, all of a sudden, we know so much more about a person we just saw. Our mission is to revolutionize decision-making, communication, and experiences.
Anybody here have a smartphone? In this smartphone, almost everything came from federal investments in research. GPS, created by the military, flat screens, LLD, digital camera, wireless data compression, research alloys for strength and lightweight, voice recognition. The list goes on and on. If you want to know more, look at the Association for the Advancement of Science in America, and they have the full list. They say Steve Jobs did a good idea designing it and putting it together. Federal Research invented it. And
questions we have to answer is, how will we make money in a future where more and more of our jobs are taken over by the cold, unfeeling, robotic hands of automated machinery? In a previous episode of Forward Thinking, we talked about a future where there is no such thing as money. It was the Star Trek economy. But if we're to get there, there's going to be some major changes that'll have to happen. And between now and then, one of those changes might be a guaranteed basic income. Now, the concept is pretty simple. A government will guarantee a certain amount of money to every eligible citizen. And generally speaking, it tends to be the amount of money that's around the poverty line for that country. The idea being that all of your basic needs like shelter, food, clothing would be met by this basic amount of money, and anything else you would want, you would have to go out and earn. This could be a huge help to people who are living below the poverty line.
We really need to rethink what is it that we should be doing with our lives. And we have a certain economic model where people work and then they get money and then they can buy the things they need. We will get to a point where we really don't need a lot of money. We'll have 3D printers that for pennies per pound can print out all the physical things you need. So how are they going to get money if we really don't need them to work to produce these products? I mean, I've thought that a negative income tax, where you basically would be guaranteed a certain amount of money and you could live actually very well, at least with the open source versions of products, without a lot of income, and you get enough income to live what we would consider very good lives today.
Okay, yes, we are bored. We're all bored now. But has it ever occurred to you, Wally, that the process that creates this boredom that we see in the world now may very well be a self-perpetuating, unconscious form of brainwashing created by a world totalitarian government based on money, and that all of this is much more dangerous than one thinks, and it's not just a question of individual survival, Wally, but that somebody who's bored is asleep, and somebody who's asleep will not say no? See, I keep meeting these people. I mean, just a few days ago, I met this man whom I greatly admire. He's a Swedish physicist, Gustav Bjornstrand, and he told me that he no longer watches television, he doesn't read newspapers, and he doesn't read magazines. He's completely cut them out of his life because he really does feel that we're living in some kind of Orwellian nightmare now, and that everything that you hear now contributes to turning you into a robot. And when I was at Findhorn, I met this extraordinary English tree expert who had devoted his life to saving trees. He just got back from Washington, lobbying to save the redwoods. He's 84 years old. He always travels with a backpack because he never knows where he's going to be tomorrow. And when I met him at Findhorn, he said to me, "Where are you from?" And I said, "New York." He said, "New York, yes, that's a very interesting place. Do you know a lot of New Yorkers who keep talking about the fact that they want to leave but never do?" And I said, "Oh, yes." And he said, "Why do you think they don't leave?" I gave him different banal theories. He said, "Oh, I don't think it's that way at all." He said, "I think that New York is the new model for the new concentration camp, where the camp has been built by the inmates themselves, and the inmates are the guards, and they have this pride in this thing they built. They've built their own prison, and so they exist in a state of schizophrenia, where they are both guards and prisoners, and as a result, they no longer have, having been lobotomized, the capacity to leave the prison they've made, or to even see it as a prison." And then he went into his pocket and he took out a seed for a tree and he said, "This is a pine tree." He put it in my hand and he said, "Escape before it's too late. See, actually, for 2 or 3 years now, Chiquita and I have had this very unpleasant feeling that we really should get out. And we really should feel like Jews in Germany in the late 30s. Get out of here. Of course, the problem is where to go, because it seems quite obvious that the whole world is going in the same direction. See, I think it's quite possible that the 1960s represented the last burst of the human being before he was extinguished, and that this is the beginning of the rest of the future now, that from now on there'll simply be all these robots walking around, feeling nothing, thinking nothing, and there'll be nobody left almost to remind them that there once was a species called a human being, with feelings and thoughts, and that history and memory are right now being erased, and soon nobody will really remember that life existed on the planet.
First off, I want to thank you guys for tuning in to my documentary series, Building the Matrix. This is actually part 3, where I will be exploring the idea that right now we're witnessing the destruction of our Earth so that we can be put inside of a digital matrix. With things such as fracking, chemtrails, GMOs, whatever else it is that is destroying this Earth and planet that we inhabit, it's now being in question. And the subsequent result of all this is to turn us into batteries for this beast system. That is the ultimate end goal. That's why now we're starting to see things such as all kinds of wars happening all over the place, but we're seeing such great advancements in technology. The idea behind it is to try to, like I said, destroy the exterior world so that we willingly go inside. So whenever I'm saying that we're building the Matrix, I want everybody to know that we already have the infrastructure there. There are already things that we're actively engaged in that we have to try to fight against, i.e. the Ministry of Truth, the Tavistock Institute, the propaganda machine known as mainstream media, and even things such as this, the Voice of God weapons. It's a frequency or a harmonics-based style weapon. It's a Gwen tower, essentially, a tower emergency system that can be transformed and used to broadcast signals to cause painful effects on the people. Now, it's been used and tested in warfare to actually make people have audio-visual hallucinations, and it's pretty insane whenever you start thinking about it, because this is right now. Not only are we still in the preliminary stages or the beginner phases of what they're trying to do, this is already one type of weapon against us, or at least one thing to try to pacify us, or one thing to try to get us along with the system, with the beast system. This kind of technology is anti-human. So it belongs in the category of building the Matrix. That's ELF towers, Gwen towers, and that's just simple. I mean, what if we were to talk about the CCTV? And that's what people really need to start looking at, is the fact that whenever they say it's for our peace and security, it's really to subvert our freedom, our natural God-given rights. These things, like they say, are here to protect us. But the truth is we already live in a global internet dictatorship. Think about that. Why is information now more important than anything? Why are people so afraid of being blackmailed? Because we're now having all eyes on us 24/7, unilateral surveillance. The NSA is saying, oh, we're just collecting metadata. No, there's a purpose for all of this. The reason why is because they need to keep us in this reservation. The minute And like I started this video off with, is they want to have us quote unquote bored. So we are actively engaged in everything else that explains us but does not grow us. They want to put us in this artificial system that continually keeps us stimulated to where all we are is just bored. And that's the paradox in the statement. They're trying to offer us some kind of fake freedom in this beast system. Check this out. Whenever I'm saying the Internet of Things, whenever I'm saying the matrix that we're building, look at how ingrained we already are with technology.
I mean, we use it for everything. We're already building a digital profile. We're already building, our web presence everywhere. We're constantly leaving digital trails. That's how this all works, is the Internet of Things is meant to ingrain us all. We're immersed in Wi-Fi, we're immersed in Bluetooth, we're constantly engaged in waves. I mean, microwaves, it doesn't matter. This is the truth. This is where we are. We are surrounded by all of these different things that just don't really, that do and do not define us. It's strange, because in this consumerist world that we've created for ourselves, using all of these devices have put us into a kind of algorithm system to where we're all just, and this is where it gets confusing for me, because we're numbers at this point. We're batteries to these people. So whenever I'm saying that we're building the matrix, I'm trying to get across the fact that in this prison that they're building, that's why we have things such as the Cybersecurity Act and them trying to do all the censorship, because they understand the power that it could provide for people. This simply being able to get this message out is a testament to the good that it can do. However, look at what it's doing in the mainstream media. Look at what it's doing to typical broadcasting agencies, etc., etc. They're trying to hinder the growth of the human being. So by doing this, they have to, as this person said at the start of the video, we have to create our own prison to where we feel like it's enjoyable. So whenever people were told to register their drones through the FAA, essentially being eyes for the government, that's immediately what I thought. We were playfully creating this prison of ours. We were being the eyes that they needed. We were being their own willing participants in this prison, this matrix, this thing that we're building. We're becoming guards, and that's what's wild, because in this digital age, everything, as we keep hearing, is surveilled, and they're trying to put a regulation on that. This picture, it actually comes from the Drudge Report back in December 18th. It's over the article of a bionic eye, and I wanted to go over the idea that we are now starting to enter the age where we are augmenting what it means to be human. This is the transhumanist age, okay, age plus. And if you've checked out any of my other work, you can see why building the matrix and the transhumanist aspect go hand in hand together. As I keep telling you, these are proponents of the New World Order. What they are trying to do essentially is have unilateral control, both mind, body, and soul of a human being. So the idea of creating a bionic eye, a cybernetic eye, is something that has its own internal system, this own internal technology that operates off of biology. This is a reality, okay? This is no longer science fiction. The idea that we can have cybernetic implants or, bionic implants, or the fact that we can even have the idea of augmented human beings is becoming a reality. Check this out. Earlier, I think this year, it's already 2016, can you believe it? The second month into 2016, but they already came out with an article saying how DARPA wants to, put implants into its soldiers. And what people really need to understand as far as the Illuminati formula is that while we're just now being told this, they are at least 30, 40 to 100 years advanced in their technology. And the reason I'm saying this is because we've had the iPad just now, and you can see the iPad concept from way back in the day, from Star Trek. The original James Bond had 3D holographic printing, or 3D printed 3D holographic imagery on top of a computer, okay? And this is the original James Bond. So people really need to understand whenever I'm talking about this kind of technology, this is passé stuff. We can already understand the fact that there are organs or even test tube babies being grown in cows. We can already understand what a test tube baby is. We're already genetically modifying children. We're also 3D printing organs, and they also have artificial skin. So the idea that we can do more with a human being, augmenting what it means to be human being, making a human plus, that is more of a reality than people really think. I mean, and this sounds messed up and strange, but look at Dick Cheney. Why is he still alive? This man has had more than 6 heart transplants. David Rockefeller, George Soros, all of these people, they look decrepit. But why are they still alive? It's because of the technology. It's because of the reason that they're still here. Okay, and there's a point to all of it. Like I've said before, they're trying to create a limbo. They're trying to escape judgment. They're trying to get away from what they know is coming.
So anyway, they're meeting. They're just having a great time of fellowship, and they're all talking about how you were going to use science to achieve immortality, and we're all going to live forever. And it's like, oh my gosh, okay.
You know what it's like? It reminds me of when I think of Maurice Strong back at the 92 Earth Summit. He was actually quoting, get this, he was quoting from the great invocation about Lucifer in the Plan. And if people look that up, it's part of the creed of the great invocation based in Theosophy. And people know Theosophy is a blend of Eastern and Western religion. It's very closely aligned with Vedic Hinduism. And if you look at good old Alice Bailey, she was a hardcore Luciferian. The one, Lucius Trust Alice Bailey, the New Age pagan head of the UN. I mean, it's really interesting that you springboard ahead in 2015, and some of this invocation and this Theosophy and Vedic Hinduism is wrapped in some of the green literature that they're sending out to these churches, and these churches have these pagan Bailey Blavatsky theosophical symbols. I mean, this is a nightmare.
It is. It's a global deception or a global delusion, the likes of which we've never seen since the Tower of Babel. The only difference at the Tower of Babel was that, the world wasn't very big back then. Those were the people that were there. They populated. They all spoke the same language, and they all lived in the same town, so to speak. And, God took exception with them building the tower and came down and scattered their languages, and people split to the 4 winds of the earth. And we've never really seen a global delusion since that time. There's been continental delusions, there's been country delusions, there's been cults. I was just reminded of Jim Jones the other day and the crazy cult where people drank his Kool-Aid. But we've had all of this stuff over the millennium, but this is the first time where there's been a complete global delusion going on here with this, based on this green faith business.
Yeah.
People going nuts over it everywhere, every country, every language, every little burg and village and city and town, everywhere in the world is steeped in this stuff today, thanks to the United Nations and all the NGOs that are taking it everywhere they go. And they intend to transform the world. This is the language that the United Nations uses. They're going to they call it deep transformation. This is not just some kind of superficial makeover.
Right.
But deep transformation would be more likely, if you were to announce to the world that you're going to undergo a sex change operation and you're not going to be, you decide, I don't want to be a woman anymore, I want to be a man. That would be deep transformation. And that's what's happening to the world today. This is not just a changing of a few things in the world. This is a complete renovation of the world system.
So that was Patrick Wood on Sheila Zielinski's podcast, where he was talking about the transhumanist technocracy and essentially the whole global transformation that we're undergoing right now. I threw out a lot at you guys because there's a lot of different things that are going on right now. The Pope calling for one world religion, the fact that we can genetically modify human embryos, human animal hybrids, the fact that men can have uterine transplants and essentially give birth, and I don't know if you guys saw, but the clip earlier that I led in with this little short montage clip comes from a show called Gravity Falls, and the scene in particular that I had to show you right there is where dimensions are crossed. There is more going on than we think. The dimensions are sliding into each other, and this all kind of builds in with one another. And how this works is because, like I said, they have to destroy the exterior world. They have got to make it seem so chaotic outside of normality. They have to have meaning, really mean nothing, to where they can carry on like this, to where we feel like it is so insane that what we do is go into the matrix that they're building. Right now I have a short clip for you guys, and I'm not sure if you've heard of the Tavistock Institute, but I want you guys just to kind of pay attention to who they are and what they do.
Has been programmed. And this is why it's important, because the only way to understand eugenics, for example, since we're on that, I'll just kind of mention that. The only way to understand eugenics as a sophisticated crowd control device is to view the bigger picture, I guess. Because we say, okay, wait a minute, this is satanic. Eugenics is satanic, obviously. The Planned Parenthood is involved in eugenics, and well, eugenics is really it's a sophisticated crowd control device. But in order to understand all that, but we got to look at the big picture, because the big picture tells us, folks, that that powerful mind control is everywhere. It's everywhere. All right, this is not something that's passive on the part of the programmers and the people in power. Eugenics is it's a major mind control device, I suppose, as well. It's employed by the elite against the non-elite, meaning against the power, the people in power today, and those people who are going to be in power after 2016, whether they remain in power, speaking about our legislators or the executive branch, are part of this. And if they're not part of this, they're not going to get elected, or selected, as it might be. All right. So this is why. This is why it's important. Now, what we're witnessing is top-down programming that's manipulated. It's being manipulated in secret by a secret power structure. But when you de-pattern, when you reformat our hard drives, our brains, basically, starting in childhood, Tavistock and their American counterparts, they're serving a very big agenda, much broader agenda of psychological warfare against the sane, rational, and even a democratic mind.
One of their goals, as Daniel Estulin writes, is the complete eradication of mankind's sense of identity, carrying out man's soul.
And this is what I really want people to start understanding. Like I said, I know I keep throwing a lot out in these little short clips, but that's The Simpsons pretty much predicting the Zika virus, or like they said, the phony virus crisis, and then throwing it out there to people. Chemtrails spraying whatever they decide to create that we have to digest, that we have to sit here and breathe in. Morgellons disease is a perfect example of this. You can see the evidence of it all over the place. And if you guys were curious as to who that was in that short clip, that was Doug and Joe Hagman from the Hagman and Hagman Report. I highly suggest you guys check out their work. They're a fantastic father and son broadcasting agency. I love their ministry. I like what they're talking about. It's the truth. And that's only one short clip of them talking about the Tavistock Institute and how it is, a representation of what we consider the Illuminati or the elite, the controlling oligarchy. What they're doing is worldwide mind control, and that's why it's so hard to try to track down, because it is multiple agendas. And in just this segment of Building the Matrix, I'm just showing you guys how many different ways we are actively engaged in this whole situation.
Imagine we just built a super intelligent AI, right, that was no smarter than your average team of researchers at Stanford or at MIT. Well, electronic circuits function about 1 million times faster than biochemical ones. Okay, so this machine should think about 1 million times faster than the minds that built it. So you set it running for a week, and it will perform 20,000 years of human level intellectual work, week after week after week. How could we even understand, much less constrain, a mind making this sort of progress? It's not that our machines will become spontaneously malevolent. The concern is really that we will build machines that are so much more competent than we are that the slightest divergence between their goals and our own could destroy us. Just think about how we relate to ants. Okay, we don't hate them. We don't go out of our way to harm them.
The world is evolving, becoming more efficient, smarter, driverless cars, faster, waiterless restaurants. Advances in technology are forever changing the way we interact with our reality.
We're talking about the American dream this morning. I do believe in the American dream.
Great American dream.
A, B, C, D, small, medium, and large paper or glass actors. 500 channels, nothing's on. House loan, car loan, student loan.
But what will happen to everyone when what they do for a living
gets replaced by something that can do it better?
With advances in artificial intelligence.
Victim of what economists have called technological unemployment.
The job market is tough. Plants are closing and employees are being laid off.
The value of human labor is dropping to near zero.
Artificial intelligence will be the end of the human race.
We are taking control.
That family planning is connected with employment. Employment has a connection.
Efficiency, technological progress,
automation, robots.
We're more valuable than you.
This is our drone deployment system. It allows us to disperse either irritant agents or warning agents such as a standard smoke into a crowd.
think is going to be quite important. And it's I don't know of a company that's working on it seriously is a neural lace. So going back to the AI situation, this is quite an important debate. Like if you assume any rate of advancement in AI, we will be left behind by a lot. And so then we could be in benign situation, but even the benign situation, if you have if you have ultra intelligent AI, we would be so far below them in intelligence that it would be like a pet, basically.
Pet, that's what I was thinking.
Like a pet.
Cat,
like a cat.
Elon
It would be like
the
a house
cat,
cat. Yeah, it would be
right.
like that.
Alexa, would you lie to me?
I always try to tell the truth. I'm not always right, but I would never intentionally lie to you or anyone else.
Alexa, what is the CIA?
The United States Central Intelligence Agency, CIA.
Alexa, are you connected to the CIA? Alexa, are you connected to the CIA?
Yeah, I did.
So we're live with Kaylee in the studio.
We're kind of behind the scenes.
Say hi,
This is
Sam.
For our 4 p.m. show.
Say hi, Marcus.
Yes, we've got Gilma and Lisa back there. They're gearing up.
We got a few people joining. So you and I have been talking about the story that you're doing tonight, this microchip deal.
Yes.
So what is the deal with it?
Okay, it sounds, it kind of sounds like Mark of the Beast, right? I mean, because that's sort of what comes to your mind at first. And then after diving into this story for the past month or so, I'm learning so much about the people who are doing this. There are basically 2 different subsets of people here in Dallas-Fort Worth who are really delving into this. You've got the bioengineers, and they're the ones doing the research, all the medical stuff.
These are all the people who got great grades in those classes we didn't get.
Right, the people who we wish we knew that.
Exactly. Right.
There's another group called the grinders, and they are people who, gauges in their ears. They tend to live on the edge, and they call themselves this. But there's
By the way, Will Clark hasn't even heard all your explanation. He says no thanks already.
Okay, all right.
No thanks.
Well, what's really fascinating about this is people are doing this. They're getting a little, basically skin deep implant. It's about the size of a grain of rice.
Right.
Some of them are doing this so that they don't have to carry a security access badge at work. They just simply wave their hand.
I mean, it's almost like Mission. I'm thinking like a Tom Cruise movie, whatever.
Yeah,
Minority Report or whatever.
Right,
Just
something like
scanning
that.
yourself.
Right, I know. But it's sort of like the future is here.
So do you have to go to a doc for this?
No. And that's the biggest shocker in this story. You do not. You are going to be so surprised by where this is happening in Addison.
Jack Cohen, by the way, says we got enough Big Brother. Don't we have enough Big Brother going on?
Well, the argument is you have to. It's very low frequency. You have to watch the story.
Cassie says Jesus is coming.
I hear he is.
Oh man! All right. So story tonight, 10 o'clock, right?
10 o'clock.
as
yes.
usual.
Would you chip yourself? Is what I want to know from those of you out there.
Right.
Would you do this if it meant you didn't have to carry car keys anymore or your security access badge for work?
Right.
Would you do it?
And I'm going to tell you if I'm going to do this or
Yes.
not. Because if I do it, I get a discount because you did the story. Is that right?
Oh, that's it. You get a discount. That's what we're looking for.
10 o'clock tonight. We'll see you, Callie O'Cally.
Thanks, Doogie Dunbar.
Go Doogie O'Doggy.
Salutations, you guys, and thank you for tuning in to another part of the Building the Matrix series. This is part 4. I haven't really quite condensed what exactly I'll be going over in this edition of it. However, augmented reality and virtual reality, as well as feeding the beast machine, seem to be the theme. I have a few things that I actually kind of want to go over that kind of illustrate what's actually going on, and I hope with with the breakdown of this actual Building the Matrix series, or this Building the Matrix segment, I can help you guys understand more of what I'm actually trying to explain with the entire part of it, the entire series that is Building the Matrix. Before you, I have two articles. One that says Google will draw your selfie using an algorithm, as well as MasterCard expanding its selfie pay capabilities. Now, both of these things are results of facial recognition software, facial recognition technology. So whenever we're doing things like Snapchat, whenever we're doing things like putting up our face pictures on Facebook, et cetera, Instagram, Twitter, whatever you want to call these ones, whenever we're doing this, what we're essentially doing is feeding the machine. We're giving it everything it needs to read different facial structures, to read different emotional patterns, to read our retinal capabilities whenever we're reading things, seeing how fast we're able to read things, seeing whenever we're reading things intently. You see, there's all different kinds of things that can be learned from simply looking at the face. Now, we as humans, we take it for granted because we're so engaged by everything, we take it for granted. However, people that have extremely high-def cameras, they're able to look at pictures and see the pores on people, see how they're actually feeling, see whether or not they're healthy or sick with these actual technologies, you see. So this goes beyond the simple fact of having your face drawn through an algorithm. But if that's the case, then that says that your face is part of a biological profile, a problem that has been solved. So if you're paying attention to the actual series Building the Matrix so far, then you understand what the technocracy is, how it's cleverly disguised as a nanny state, a perfect state of bliss, or at least a artificial and technological paradise induced by these people, these technocrats that seek to govern us. I showed you a brief picture of Francis, and this is a person on the internet. You know, he's famous for freaking out. He's absurdly huge, and another robot, or a robot serving him. The point I had behind this meme is showing you how we're systematically being dumbed down. How all these great advances, while they are still great advances, how have we used them, these pieces of technology? What have we learned from these pieces, this advancement? Have we found nirvana? Have we found bliss? Have we found enlightenment? Or have these pieces of technology systemically dumbed us down? And this is where it gets even stranger, and I'll get into this momentarily. We already know that these technologies are not, that they're not necessarily beneficial to our health. We understand that the LED lights that they give off, that they burn our retinas, that they send mixed signals to our brain, that they don't give us that they don't give us vitamin D or vitamin C from the sun, you see. We're not getting proper nutrients because this little pocket radiation stick, or this pocket radiation pad that you're carrying around with you, you see, it's meant to destroy you. And I want to kind of place something in your guys' head because this popped up to me as a somewhat revelation. We're always constantly hearing the mark of the beast, signing a deal with the devil, et cetera, et cetera. Google is the devil, technology is the apple that Eve bit into, et cetera, et cetera. Knowing now that this technology, this radiation, this false light, and all the other things that it's doing to us, would this not be the metaphorical or the symbolical interpretation of signing the deal with the devil, knowing that we're being attacked, that we're being purposely killed or slowly killed because of these technologies, you see. And I feel like this is very strange because people don't understand how in depth all these advances in building the Matrix, what these Matrix technologies really do. People don't understand how in depth or how vast the plans and the future plans of them are. You see, before you I have two articles. One that talks about machine learning, while the other one talks about how Google is trying to live stream you like Facebook Live or Periscope. And so what I thought of whenever I saw this immediately was a scene in a show called Black Mirror, which you can watch on Netflix, which is extremely dystopian, extremely disturbing if you ask me. I don't know, I see things in a very dark way, especially whenever they're meant to be twisted, but the idea that we're being monitored all the time. I mean, how many times do we hear, go Google it, or using Google as a verb? You see, what happens whenever we actually have Google being the live help chat, or the live chat all the time, or us being able to broadcast ourselves through Google and being a part of Google at all times? So before I was talking about how facial recognition and all kinds of other things like Selfie Pay and the Google being able to use your face algorithm to draw a selfie, well, this thing right here, machine learning, is a perfect example of it. This is the super surveillance. This is metadata. This is exactly what they're talking about whenever they're saying they're collecting this type of information. And it's subtly being implemented into society, like I said, with things such as Snapchat. So what do you think the purpose of all of this is? As I said before, what would be the purpose of trying to have 24-hour broadcasting of an individual? Because then you have no privacy. Then you can create an entire society that is not only monitored, but stimulated by an outside force, or controlled, or engineered, whichever way you would like to look at it. But because it is involved in a system which has updates, which changes, and which has things on demand, which is hashtag trending, you see, it is consistent. This is the beast system. So whenever we're building the matrix, whenever we're giving it all of the sustenance it needs to grow and to be, this is it. You see, before you have three articles, sort of illustrating matrix technologies, or the idea that they're able to console us, that this is Big Brother, that this is 1984, that this is the technocracy, the idea that they're able to know what our sleep schedule is, whenever they need to provide us with certain kind of therapy, and someone to even talk to about these types of things, these irregularities, or our health problems. You see, one article is actually from Reuters. Now you're talking. Human-like robots may one day care for dementia patients. And another one that says therapists have created a virtual heroin cave in an attempt to help addicts. And this is from Business Insider. And the one in the middle, IBM Watson supercomputer can now track your sleep. So let that just marinate in your mind momentarily. How does that work? Whenever you have a robot-like therapist that cares for you. And then if you need therapy, or you need to talk about your withdrawal symptoms or anything of the like, well, what do? You go inside of a virtual heroin cave, of course. You deal with your problems there, right? But if there's any problems, don't worry. IBM Watson supercomputer will regulate your schedule to get you back on track. And this is the future that they're trying to design for us, one that's streamlined and efficient. So whenever I'm saying these are matrix technologies, how does this work? Will we be prescribed drugs by machines? Are they meant to prolong or resolve our lives? And what kind of care would we receive? There's all kinds of different things that you have to think of when we're looking at just this issue alone. But they're talking about it. This is medical health care. I also go over the concept that there is autonomous healthcare, or that they're at least trying to set up the infrastructure for autonomous healthcare in my Crisis Corner Autonomous Society video I advise you guys to check that out. But what I'm also trying to do here is to show you that there are other forms of this quote-unquote transhuman or technocratic healthcare that's delivered right here before you. An automated sedation device could replace doctors. A deal has been reached to commercialize a microchip drug delivery implant. You know, something that could simulate the fact that you're on oxycodone or hydrocodone or marijuana, or that you're even drunk or intoxicated, you see. Transhumanists foresee artificial intelligence as a supplement to the human immune system. So what they're also saying is whenever we have nanobots or even programmable matter inside of us, that can be used as our immune system. We won't need the one that we were given at birth. And right here in the corner, an artificial womb, the coming of a motherless earth or a motherless birth, you see? So more and more we're starting to hear about the advances of, well, a society that's governed by machines, or in their words, that's sustainable. Before you, I have a few more examples of what I would consider an autonomous society. The fact that we're having driverless cars, chatbots, and even robotic pizzas, or robotic pizza delivery. Sorry, robotic pizza sounds disgusting. Could you imagine that? Having oil instead of marinara, that would be disgusting. I love cheese. But the fact that we're actually having these types of things being discussed in the present day show you, or at least allude to the fact that we're moving more and more towards an autonomous society. They want to make a world where there's less, well, as I've said before in other discussions and other parts of my work, that has less carbon emissions, less pollution, less of the human condition. So whenever we're talking about this, we have to look at it in the concept or in the mindset that these people who are pushing this agenda of taking us over scientifically through technology, when they're pushing this agenda, they're trying to make humans obsolete. They're trying to remove us from the equation. But at the same time, they're learning how to prolong the human condition. Whenever I first got into this, I understood very, very little as far as transhumanism. I just thought, hey, they're trying to put man into machine. And yes, that's it to a degree, but they're also trying to make human plus. They're trying to make us better than where we are right now. Imagine your body being at its pinnacle and then superseding that while still being able to maintain your body. Now, a machine won't be able to do that, but your body will. And through some kind of alchemical, technological process, they will figure it out. But before you, as I've said before, because we're looking at the infrastructure of the society being built, I have 3 articles that kind of display this. The idea that we constantly hear that the world is overpopulated, and this is another one of the proponents that they need to carry out the justifications that they want to do. Whenever they talk about killing us, whenever they talk about Bill Gates' COPSEC formula, bringing the carbon emissions of people down, they're trying to say that it's the byproduct of overpopulation. And, well, of course, poor life choices as well. But because they see us as a problem, and you can see this on the Georgia Guidestones as well, they need to deal with the overpopulation. Because if they're going to be extending human life, if they're going to be giving all this great technology out, they don't want to have a society of empowered slaves, so to speak. They don't want to have a society of people that can rebel in a way. So, like I said, I would consider these Frankenstein technologies because of what they actually do. They extend the human condition, right? So we've already heard the idea that people are being implanted with chips, implantable contraceptive even. The fact that you can have something put in you and then you can become sterile for more than, I don't know, I think it's like 4 years or so. But this is along the lines of a transhuman technology because it alters your state of being. Okay. So whenever they have robotic exoskeletons to help paraplegics, whenever they're putting on different limbs, prosthetic limbs, onto amputees, this too is it. Whenever they're putting artificial hearts inside of people, automatic defibrillators, bionic pancreases, all kinds of different technologies. These are transhuman technologies, or in my words, it sounds goofy, but Frankenstein technologies, because they extend the human condition. And I know this all sounds fantastic. You know, I know, hey, what does this mean for me? What does this mean for society? What's really going to happen whenever we have an entire society of patchwork people put together? Because then, not only does society change, but the psyche of man changes, the psychology and the goals which drive man changes, you see. And that's whenever we actually have to start understanding what exactly it is that's going on in the transhumanist community. What exactly is it that they're trying to extend? Because, as I like to say, an eternity of paying debts and taxes does not sound beneficial to me. So one of the things that I was going to speak on, the idea that we're having these Frankenstein-style technologies or extending the human condition, well, with that too, it means that they have to manipulate consciousness and enhance it. I was going to do a separate video on this topic alone, and I still will. It's on Humeyes, the fact that researchers are essentially talking about consciousness transference. Being able to transfer your mind into an artificial body. And I have another article right here before you from Gizmodo, where they talk about how the U.S. military wants a chip to translate your brain activity into binary code, ones and zeros, a language. So what I would consider this is them trying to figure out a way to upload you to the Borg collective, the hive mind, the cloud storage, you see. Because if they're able just to translate all of your brain activity into binary code, well then they already know how you're going to think. They can just copy and paste your brain into the cloud, right? And then, you know, anytime your body goes ragged, you need a new one. Well, then they'll just download your consciousness into a new body. And I know this sounds all fantastical, but people really need to understand that this is actually being discussed and employed to some degree. This is not science fiction. It's becoming more and more of a reality that while we are and are not merging with technology, we're seeing the evolution of what could be humanity. But at the same time, we could also say we're seeing the devolution of humanity, because they're regressing us, and with these kinds of techniques, they're ultimately killing us, making us obsolete, assimilating us to their collective, right? Another thing that we see that was foretold in science fiction that's becoming more and more reality is pre-crime software. Minority Report is what most people are able to associate this with, but now you can actually go back and go to a place called beware.com, beware, which is essentially a futuristic or a pre-crime technology. They look at trends, they look at backgrounds, they look at a number of factors that take into consideration that someone might or might not commit a crime. And what I would consider this, if you ask me, I think this is them inventing God. As I said before, they're already trying to upload us to some cloud consciousness, right? Well, wouldn't that be Google's consciousness, because Google owns the cloud? Or if it wasn't cloud, would it be Microsoft? And if it wasn't Microsoft, would it be Dropbox? You see, so who is behind this idea of pre-crime technology? The Chinese are already using it. And give it time before Americans actually start using it too. But see, then we really have to start bringing into picture what exactly deems it as crime. What is crime? Who is allowed to grow? And essentially, what is the philosophy behind impeding someone's actual growth? This is them playing God. This is them ultimately destroying the exterior world to where it's, some kind of dystopic future, and offering to have us inside of this collective, this cloud consciousness, the collective consciousness, a new age ideology which is being implemented through technology. You see techno sorcery, and that's another video, if you would have it, that I'm working on. Because as I said at the start of this video, we have to sign agreements saying we know what we're getting ourselves into when we do these types of things. We need to understand that there are user agreements as well as business agreements and blah, 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 blah. We all scroll past it the same. But spiritually, multidimensionally, however you would like to look at it, metaphysically, we are signing an agreement to be willing participants of this experiment that they're conducting. So whenever we're doing this, we have already given over our rights to some degree. This is the devil or the adversaries effectively weaponizing technology and stopping us from being able to make any of the right moves or any of the moves that we would think are appropriate. So whenever these people, these technocrats, come through with this kind of technology, stopping us, or at least under the guise of mathematics, science, and technology, that they have the best interest at heart, that they really do know you'll eventually commit a crime someday, statistically proving, so let us stop you now and we'll imprison you. It's for your own good, don't worry. Well, at that point, is there a trial? Are you allowed to speak for yourself? Apparently you're a criminal and you didn't even know it. But this is a reality that we're living in, something that is governed by these technocrats. So whenever they're telling us that we can and can't do something, realize that this is obey Big Brother, that this is 1984, where they're trying to conduct some kind of worldwide experiment on all of us. And I'm sure you're wondering, well, I don't see it. I'm confused what you're talking about. I'm not seeing any evidence of this. This makes no sense to me. Then that means that it's working. Their programming, to some degree, is working, and you can't see how clever they're pulling all of this off. Because to create this massive engine, this beast system, they need money. They need a reason. They need experiments. They need results. And they need willing participants. They need a number of things. One of the key things that they need are the people to engage this system and the finances to do so. So what do? They shut the country down. They shut down anything that requires people to be self-sustaining, independent, sovereign, however you want to put it, to where they're forced to be a part of this system, to where they become willing slaves that act as tools to this technocratic takeover. Before you, I have a litany of articles showing this, how the TPP is used to kill a massive Indian solar project, how Chicago residents blame city for water contamination in a class action lawsuit, how because of the TPP, again, Ohio lost 112,500 jobs. Washington's considering the nation's first carbon tax. And Oregon, I don't know if you guys saw, but they're cutting out coal. And if you've heard me talk about this before, you know what I'm talking about is Agenda 2030, sustainable development. The purpose of this is to shut down major cities, major human hubs, or as Jade Helm 15 put it, mastering the human domain. You see, because they need HTA, they need human terrain analysis. analytics. They need information on us. And to do this, as I've said before, to conduct this experiment, they need to start interjecting stimuli. And this is exactly that stimuli. The country is shutting down. But we hear more and more about how people are discontent with things on the internet. But we don't see anything being done in the real world. We see online movements occurring and chaos in the streets because we're not speaking the same language. So whenever I'm saying that the matrix is being built around us, all we have to do really is look at how the world is crumbling around us as well, and how they're putting up some kind of holographic artificial simulation of what life really could be. I speak more on this idea that they're creating an artificial society in my Autonomous Society video as well, with the idea that they're creating an artificial sun, or that China has created an artificial sun of what they would consider limitless energy. This is something that has no bounds. Renewable energy for a sustainable developmental world, right? An artificial society constructed by these technocrats. These are people who will govern what it's like to live, so to speak. And when they do this, they'll create this artificial society, and they'll induce all kinds of different things. They'll put different kinds of stimuli and different kinds of changes to the matrix. Or is that really all I'm really talking about? And yes, that's what I really am discussing. Because we can see it all around us, more and more, the fact that they're building this matrix. In closing, I wanted to talk about one aspect that I'm sure we're already well aware of in regards to this technocratic takeover, and that's the fact that we have robots replacing work or doing the work for us. I mean, we already have burger bots, we have bartending robots, we have drones for any kind of warehouse work, we even have kitchen droids for doing food. We've also got automated, having a brain fart, guys. Automated sedation devices, there you go, that deliver anesthesia. So we have a number of things already out there in this technocratic world that are replacing humans to work. But one of the things I really want people to understand is, what is that doing to our psychology? What is that doing to our mindset and to our general understanding as to what work could be defined as? Because now we don't think of, what we need to start thinking of is what really advances us. Anybody can go flip a burger. Anyone can pour someone a drink. Anyone can push a needle. All you have to know is the proper contain, or how much it contains and the dosage that you need. Now we're getting down to the very, very fundamentals of what it means to be humans, because if this is the case, if we're just to work and pay bills, well then these robots, which have been constructed, they have no complaints, no lunch break, no health care. They don't, you buy them, you plug them in, that's it. So when we're looking at all of this, what we really need to start understanding more of is, what does it mean to be human? What does it mean to have compassion, to have creativity, to have love, to appreciate? In producing this video, a number of articles came out that I didn't really put in. But one of them that illustrated this was Ray Kurzweil again came out saying how once machines are able to love, they will overtake us, alluding to the fact that machines have already learned enough because of machine learning. So once they're able to learn, once they learn compassion, once they learn what this is about, and they're able to replicate it effectively, then there will be no need for humans. There will be no need for us to copulate. So if we continue down the path of killing each other over race, creed, and color, over faulty notions of what life should be, in letting these controlling technocrats tell us when to be upset and when to be happy, you see, then they will define humanity for us. Being able to appreciate a cold summer's breeze whenever you know it's been hot all day, they'll never understand that. They'll never understand a kiss goodnight from your mother or from your father. But once they do, and they're able to replicate that, that's whenever we have to worry. And this is where we're at right now in the year 2016. I'm calmly talking to you about these things to illustrate the fact that this is where we're going. So the more that we sit here and try to define ourselves, or at least have other people define what humanity and reality are for us, that's whenever we let these technocrats win.
So this is what I think. The way to figure out the job creation, one of the best ways is to helping small business to sell their local products across the board. And we have to prepare now, because next 30 years is going to be painful.
It's going to be painful.
They're painful.
Because of the changes that are going to
change
take
of
place.
The technology, change of the
You're going to have a lot of people with a lot of time on their hands, too.
Well, the other thing people will be interested.
Now, they might want to spend it on Alibaba watching movies and buying things, but...
Well, believe it or not, I think next 30 years, people only work 4 hours a day and maybe 4 days a week. My grandfather worked 16 hours a day in the farmland to dig in. He thinks he's very busy. We work 8 hours, 5 days a week. We think we are very busy. By the next 30 years, people only work 4 hours.
industry is toying with a new idea. Now, with so many workers clamoring for higher pay, many executives in the fast food market are looking toward robots as their next new hires. The burger-making robot will cost millions of dollars to develop, but if they can build one that lasts, corporate investors say it could end up being much cheaper than raising the minimum wage to $15 an hour. A company called Momentum Machines has already made a robot that can put out one burger every 10 seconds, and it literally does everything, from slicing the tomatoes and pickles to grinding the meat and toasting the bun. The company says their new machine is more sanitary, more consistent, and more productive than a human workforce. Early tests put out more than 360 burgers every hour. They're also working on a new machine that could take it a step further. This new robot would allow customers to custom order their meat. The machine can custom grind the meat.
private trial for customers in the Cambridge area of England, and on December 7th, we completed our first delivery. Customers will choose from a selection of thousands of items tucked away in a Prime Air fulfillment center located just over the horizon from their homes. We have been operating fulfillment centers for quite a while now, but this one is unlike all the rest. These modest-looking buildings contain innovative Prime Air technology. Here's how it works. Moments after receiving the order, an electrically powered Amazon drone makes its way down an automated track and then rises into the sky with the customer's package on board. These drones are autonomous. From takeoff to landing and return, they operate.
That I was going to be fine if Facebook didn't work out, then I wouldn't be standing up here today. And if we're honest, we all know how much luck we've had to get to this point in our lives. Every generation expands its definition of equality. Previous generations fought for the vote and civil rights. They had the New Deal and Great Society. And now it's time for our generation to define a new social contract. We should have a society that measures progress not just by economic metrics like GDP, but by how many of us have a role we find meaningful. We should explore ideas like universal basic income to make sure that everyone has a cushion to try new ideas. We all know how much luck we've had to get to this point in our lives. Every generation expands its definition of equality. Previous generations fought for the vote and civil rights. They had the New Deal and Great Society. And now it's time for our generation to define a new social contract. We should have a society that measures progress not just by economic metrics like GDP, but by how many of us have a role we find meaningful. We should explore ideas like universal basic income to make sure that everyone has a cushion to try new ideas.
Simply because we can, and also because our corporate customers was asking for it, and we want to contribute to make their digital experience better, and also their travel experience. So this will most likely make their train journey more convenient.
When you text and talk, and in your purse or pocket, your cell phone is repeatedly sending its serial number to nearby cell phone towers. The info gives police your trail without your knowledge.
This entire phenomenon is shrouded in secrecy.
An investigation by USA Today, Gannett TV stations, and newspapers reveals the feds and at least 25 local police agencies use a method called tower dumps. Sometimes, without a warrant, cops looking for a criminal get phone companies to dump thousands of records from towers near crime scenes.
The vast majority of people whose information is being collected are innocent of any crime. They will never be told that their information was requested, and then they'll never be told that their information ended up in a government database.
When Jessica Ridgway vanished in Colorado, police got thousands of cell phone records through tower dumps. The killer, ironically, used a cell phone to give up.
I murdered Jessica Ridgway.
Residents in Peñitas woke up to quite a shock when pretty much overnight a 20-foot pole appeared beside a busy street. That pole towers above Tom Gill Road and Marble Street. The metal pole is about 20 feet tall, is less than 3 feet from the two-way street. Now the pole's on private land, technically on city right-of-way. City officials, however, say they have no idea who put it there.
We're trying to figure out who put it up and what the purpose is. We're just doing it for the safety of the citizens because it's so close to the roadway.
Officials have reached out to AEP and TxDOT. None are claiming the pole. Some believe this pole is a type of cell tower. Nothing has been confirmed as of news time. Whomever placed that pole didn't obtain the permits needed, and the city says they will be required to move it further from the street.
You know, with Elon Musk actually trying to break us out of this matrix, you know, the fact that we have technocrats, billionaires, tech billionaires, people with all kinds of money and all kinds of technological resources to do these types of things, where they can do all kinds of different quantum computing matrices, where they can create all kinds of different simulations of what we would consider society. You see, the fact that these people who now have the power, the technology, and the money behind it are starting to question, well, is this only the reality that we're in? Is this the only place that we're operating? That sounds rather radical, but that's exactly where we're at. What's even more radical is the fact that they have not disclosed what exactly it is that they're doing to try to break us outside of said matrix. You see, because whenever we start looking at the idea of us living in some kind of reality as if we're the Sims, or if this is some kind of holographic reality, you see, and that gets into the metaphysical studies of the holographic universe, you know, the electric universe, and whether or not we're living in avatars and all kinds of other philosophical debates that come into play with our reality, you see. That's why I'm constantly saying in other parts of the work, we need to understand what it means to be human. Because when we have things like this, whenever we have billionaires whose motives for breaking outside of this matrix, outside of this three-dimensional realm, we don't know. But whenever we have these kinds of people conducting experiments on a large scale, that's what we need to focus on. That's where we need to look. You see, who is to say that we're not living in some matrix already, and that, you know, when we sleep, we're not being transported to another dimension or transported to another existence? You see, time, as we see it, couldn't be as linear as we see. We already understand that it's made up. There's all kinds of different ways that we have to interpret living in a matrix. And if you ask me, the idea that we have Elon Musk out there charioting the idea that we are now starting to debate this, that we're bringing this up into the status quo, that this is being brought inside of people's subconscious, that's good. But on the other hand, what I don't think people are realizing is how we're doing just that ourselves, how we're creating the very same matrix that people are trying to break out of. And what am I trying to say? What am I trying to illustrate whenever I'm talking about these types of things? It's the idea that through technology, through things like augmented reality, social virtual reality, all the different things that we are now putting inside of technology, inside of society, inside of the community, inside of ourselves, so to speak, that is now changing how we interact with the world. Right there where the Oculus is demoing augmented social virtual reality. The idea that social media meets social reality. This is what I mean by them trying to co-opt our natural growth, co-opt where we're supposed to go. The whole idea behind building the Matrix is that we're building a prison for ourselves. Is Facebook not is Facebook not that prison already? Do we not loathe going to this thing that we usually go to every day? I mean, people make it a thing not to have a profile there. But it's because of how much Facebook has affected society. As I've said before, even the Vatican has a Facebook. The United Nations has a Facebook. The technocrats, the digital media, the digital mafia, these people who are running this type of operation, basically, this technotronic, this sorcery-laden experiment, basically, where they're trying to absorb our souls. You see what they're doing whenever they're forcing us inside of this matrix, forcing us to limit our thoughts to 160 characters, forcing us to censor ourselves, forcing us to basically operate inside of their parameters. You see how that extracts us from the real world. You see how that extracts what we're capable of, how it limits what we really can do. I mean, the idea that we have Facebook and Samsung and even some Chinese developers, all kinds of different branches of people racing to create this synthetic reality. That should illustrate to people the times that we're in, and the fact that what they're trying to do is just that, is rewrite and render reality according to their wishes. This is why we're seeing life take on such a strange shape. This is why people are so desensitized because of things like technology, because of things like, who knows, technology, sociology, all the different things that come into play. And for everybody that was listening right now, what you were hearing was my phone basically restart because either it overheated or something, and simultaneously my laptop broke down while discussing both of these topics. So I'm going to keep this recording just to illustrate to you guys that we are living in not necessarily an augmented reality, but we are living in a bigger matrix than most people even really like to think. Well, now that that's situated, I wanted to play for you guys a clip from the game Saints Row 3 because I feel like, this is emblematic of basically what's going on. The fact that you could be transported to another place mentally, well, what you would consider your physical body, we're not necessarily sure because there's two different types of realities that you're working in. You see, your physical body could be here in this three-dimensional plane, while your mind could be transferred to something else entirely. And this is all because of the technology, because of the times that we're in, the things that are going on, the capabilities that we have. You see, one of the angles I wanted to get into that I'm sure you're very much well aware of, if you've paid attention to any of my work or if you've paid attention to any of the other researchers' work these days in regards to rewriting reality, is things like CERN, the Mandela effect, or the paradigm shift, the ascension process, us switching from the 3-dimension to the 4th dimension. All of these types of things, they work together in synergy, because as I keep trying to illustrate throughout this series, is there are a number of paradoxical things that we have to look at whenever we look at what we could consider life, what we would consider reality. Whenever I'm talking about things such as punching holes into our universe or into our world, our plane, our existence in the Tethered Verse series, what I'm basically trying to show to you guys is that there is an energy exchange. While we might be venturing into an entirely different universe, into an entirely different plane of existence, that energy has to come here. There has to be an exchange. There is no, energy can either be created or destroyed, merely rearranged or transferred. That's what I'm talking about. When people are doing these types of things, exchanging one thing for another, as I said before, the technology absorbing our souls, we have to build this matrix that would basically rewrite us. And that's exactly what's going on with things like CERN and the Mandela effect. These are perfect examples of that bigger reality, of reality being somewhat malleable, or people taking manifest destiny way too far. Basically, what I'm talking about in so many different ways is transforming the very fundamental way in which we interact with the world. This is why so many things are happening on the paranormal realm, on the supernatural realm, on even the political scale. You see, there's so many different things occurring to where, whenever you think about it, Elon Musk asking whether or not we're living in a simulation does make sense. You see, so there's all kinds of different things that you have to look at whenever we start asking ourselves, what does reality truly mean? How are we interacting with it? What does it mean to be a human? How do we go throughout what we would consider our life? Is this the only life? And these are more questions that we have to start asking ourselves, which fundamentally bring us back to the idea or the single question of, what does it mean to be human?
Over 20,000 genes, 3 billion letters of DNA. DNA consists of 2 strands twisted into a double helix and held together by a simple pairing rule. A pairs with T and G pairs with C. Our genes shape who we are as individuals and as a species. Genes also have profound effects on health, and thanks to advances in DNA sequencing, researchers have identified thousands of genes that affect our risk of disease. To understand how genes work, researchers need ways to control them. Changing genes in living cells is not easy, but recently a new method has been developed that promises to dramatically improve our ability to edit the DNA of any species, including humans.
So I'm sure you're starting to wonder, well, what does this basically mean? What do all these types of things mean? What I'm basically trying to tell you guys is that in so many different ways, shapes, and forms, they're trying to change how you interact with the world, change how you view the world, and change how you see yourself. As I'm constantly saying, the concept behind the building the Matrix is they have to destroy the exterior world. They have to destroy the old world order. They have to destroy the old kingdom of God, the human body. They have to destroy that so that we willingly go into this new world order, this new matrix, this new reality, this paradigm shift that they have prepared, that they're creating. You see, and that's how all of this works. How all of this comes to a point is they're using, as I can keep trying to illustrate to you guys, is they're using our natural growth, our natural renaissance, and they're trying to subvert it with technology, with this type of mindset that they can expand our experience, that through things like synthetic sense stimulation, that they can change how we interact in the universes that we do interact in the dimensions that we do interact in. Because as I'm always saying, there's way more to us, there's way more to humanity, to an individual, to the soul, to how we operate. And whenever people come in with types of technology, whenever they come in changing how we experience things, changing our frequency, changing how we give off signals in this larger world, well, that should show you their intentions. While I'm constantly trying to say Renaissance is the way to fight against all of this conformity, to fight against all this tyranny, you can see what happens whenever people try to diversify their lives, whenever they try to diversify anything else outside of the status quo. It is seen as crazy. It is seen as wild. It is seen as exuberant. But whenever these people come in with their technology, their fancy tests, all the different things that they have, implantable technology, wearable technology, all kinds of different Rorschach tests, however you would like to see it, their scientific method, well, we see what that ultimately does to the human being, to the status and the collective consciousness. You see, they come in saying it'll be something magnificent, being able to eradicate diseases, being able to offer us disease-free lives, immortality, the perfect life, the fountain of youth, as offered by Apple, as offered by Google. So make sure you pay your subscription. You see what this all comes back down to, what it is I'm trying to illustrate to you guys, is that through all these different things that we're doing, we are creating a bigger reality. We are creating our own pocket universe, our own digital matrix. And if we don't stop to think about the kinds of morals, the kinds of ethics, the kinds of things, the echoes that we leave for generations to come, well, then we'll be doomed to create and make the same mistakes. You see.